I just came across this very interesting internet meme where I've obviously changed, the original character to myself. But it is actually a very clear representation of me as a person. So I always speak my truth. I don't really care or worry about the consequences too much or how it's going to be received. And also, I am very transparent, honest, and authentic. However, to get to that process takes a lot of time, practice, self-awareness, as well as confidence and conviction. And there is actually a style of communication that goes extremely well with being this honest, authentic, expressive, and everything else. What am I talking about? So to learn more, stay tuned for the rest of the video. Welcome back everyone to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shweta. I'm the founder of Healthy Dynamics. We over here in this coaching practice talk about everything related to communication, specifically in the field of healthcare and more specifically for healthcare providers who are from English as a second language backgrounds, who work closely with patients on a daily basis. And my mission really is to help these healthcare providers who work with their patients every day improve their language and communication skills in order to build better relationships with their patients and also deliver exceptional patient experience to them consistently and stand out in their workplace as a person of excellence. So in the very beginning of the video, I spoke about a communication style that everyone not only practices on a regular basis, but also it's a good thing to actually be aware of and implement it, whether you're a healthcare provider or in any other field, whether it's professionally or in your everyday social life or with family and friends. This communication style is not only beneficial, but also can go a long way in building an environment or relationships that can be collaborative, team-focused, and really fostering an environment of support and really being there for each other, and also whilst not compromising who you are at your core. And this style of communication is what we call assertive communication. So traditionally you would have heard about, there's like a spectrum for assertive communication. You have the really passive, that's on one extreme. You have the really aggressive style of communication, and right in the middle is where we have assertive. I'm just going to take a little bit of a different spin on what assertive communication is and isn't. And also sort of clearing up a lot of misconceptions that people may have about what assertiveness actually is, and why it should not necessarily be always viewed as a negative thing, and why it can be problematic as well. Now, I'm aware that if I will start talking about assertiveness, we'll be here forever. So I'm going to keep it, not so long. I'll just cover as much as what I can today, and in the future, obviously, we will come back and revisit this topic at a different stage. So let's get started on a very simple definition of what assertiveness actually is. So assertiveness or assertive communication is speaking your mind in an authentic and clear manner. So you're speaking or you're just saying what's on your mind, but you're doing so from a place of authenticity, clarity, conviction, and honesty to stand up for yourself and also to be able to advocate for yourself. So on first impression, assertiveness may really come across as being quite selfish. Now, that is not what it's intended to be in the first place. So the real goal of how you build the skill, just like empathy that I talked about in my previous content, assertiveness is also a skill that you can build over a period of time, and a lot of people are not born with it. Now, believe it or not, even though I am this really blunt, abrasive, really obnoxious person who just says what's on her mind at all times, there was a time when I couldn't actually speak for myself. So I would just very blurt out what was on my mind. But when it comes to really putting down things that I didn't want, what I was willing to do and what I was not willing to do, I was really good at giving my opinions and thoughts on different things, or especially when it came to other people. But when it came to standing up for myself, I was never good at that. But with putting myself out of my comfort zone and really experimenting with different things, putting myself in different situations that were uncomfortable, but a great learning process for me, is where I really started to build and get better, develop the skill over a period of time. And here I am now coaching you guys on it. So here we go. So contrary to what people might think, assertiveness is not something that is designed really to alienate you from the rest of the world or alienate you from yourself, and it just becomes about you. That's a big misconception. So the real purpose of being assertive is that you are actually you're becoming much more action or solution driven. So that's what you're aiming to do. So you are becoming going towards that direction where you want to focus on getting a solution, fixing the problem in some way, taking concrete action in the right direction. And also, whilst when you're dealing with other parties, so say for example in the case of your patients, it's really for the purpose of leading it to some sort of a collaborative space. Now, let's just give an example of this one. So say if you are a veterinarian, and I came up with the example because my dog is sitting right behind me and he is due for his vet appointment next month. So that was it just sort of came to me. But anyway, if you're, say, a veterinarian and you take your pet over for their annual health checkup, and the vet notices that, and my dog is guilty of this. Every time we take him to the vet, the veterinarian will always say that he is very overweight. And but then again, the veterinarians will have to say it in a way that's not going to offend or upset the clients or owners too much. So whilst they're delivering that message, they have to obviously point out the observation that this animal is, based on the evidence that this animal is beyond its ideal weight. But at the same time, you also have to hold the clients accountable. So they will go off and ask questions about, okay, what are you feeding him? Or them? How often are they eating? What kind of food are they eating? And how much exercise are they doing? So they'll ask a whole heap of questions. So instead of directly going and saying, oh, he's overweight because you guys are feeding the dog or cat so much, they want to get to the bottom of what it is. So that way, when they are saying or asking these questions, it's really to help the client and come up with a solution together. So in both instances, you are being honest, but in the second one, when you're actually asking more questions after the observation, it's really with the goal of finding a solution to the animal's weight problem. So that is the one myth and the sort of antidote to what assertiveness actually is. Being assertive is not about beating around the bush. It is about being very succinct, very clear, very concise, and also very transparent and honest and authentic about where you are coming from, who you are, what you want, what you don't want, and what you stand for. So, for example, and this is very common in a lot of cultures, for example, particularly in the Asian cultures, when I used to live there many, many years ago, I could not, when people would talk, it would always be, they will add like a little bit of a smile to whatever they're saying. So, even if somebody, let's use the vet example again, even if somebody said, your animal is overweight, someone from Thailand or from some other Asian country, like even Sri Lanka where I was recently, that message will be delivered in a very, sort of indirect, convoluted way with a big smile on the face. Now, obviously, that sort of becomes like a pacifying gesture, so that they don't want to offend or upset anyone or lose face. That's a big thing in some cultures. But also in that, instead of getting straight to the point, people just sort of tend to go around and round and round instead of shooting straight from the hip. So like for example, they might say, oh, your animal looks a bit more on the heavy side. So the vet might be pressing the animal in different directions and sort of smiling along and saying things, or nodding along and just not saying anything. Whereas someone from, say, a Western culture, like say from the Australia where I'm from, or say from the UK, they will very directly say, or even some people in Europe, if the same veterinarian was from that culture, they will say very directly that as per what the scales show, your animal is quite overweight, and without any keeping a very neutral facial expression, so to speak. So many different cultures, they tend to beat around the bush, and that really sort of goes against what assertiveness is, and the message that they're trying to deliver can become, it sort of loses its meaning and its point and its essence, really. And you especially should not do that when it comes to a serious condition that your patient is having. So for example, when you're talking about terminally ill patients, or a patient who's been diagnosed with a very serious disease like cancer, like one of my friends and colleagues is going through right now, for them, you can't be like, oh, we're not able to get to an answer, and you're just going around and round and round. You have to sort of get directly to the point and then move more towards what the solution is. So beating around the bush is never a good idea. It's always a good idea to get straight to the point. And I have to reiterate, all of these things, this is a skill that takes a lot of time, practice, and also you have to, again, overcome a lot of biases and be aware of cultural differences. Coaching with me will really help you figure all those things out. So here we go. Number 3 is that assertiveness is not really designed with the purpose of actually sugarcoating or sort of softening the blow. And like I said, say for example, let's say for example you are ADP, and you know that one of your patients who's sort of consulting with you on a regular basis, you know that they are quite overweight. You know that they possibly have diabetes, and they possibly have and how ironic, I'm talking about diabetes and then I'm bringing up sugar coating. Here we go. So they're talking about diabetes, so they have that, or they could be a very heavy smoker, or they just live a very unhealthy and sedentary lifestyle. So in that case, if you really would be sugarcoating it to them, you might keep saying that, in a very joking manner that, have you realized, how long you're going to live as a result of it? Now that can also come across as quite crude, but then that's really what, it means that you're sort of softening the blow. So when you've sort of done, say, a GP, you've done a whole heap of tests, and you say, okay, this is the good news, and then this is the bad news. That's quite common. So instead of getting directly to what the problem is, you will just sort of say, oh, they're not too bad. Your sugar levels are not too bad as what they used to be before, but you still know that they're pretty much in the danger level. So again, you're just making them sort of, you're sort of breaking them in gently a little bit. But at the same time, if you're anyone like me, and if, say, I was in the position of a GP, I would just give it to them black and white, clear as crystal, that, this is where it was at, this is where it's at now. This is how much how much in crisis you are, so to speak, if you're really at that point. And this is particularly important, again, like I said previously, when a patient has any kind of chronic or terminal illnesses. You should never sugarcoat anything or beat around the bush. Although I'm aware that it's much easier said than done, because your patients come from so many different cultures. You myself may come from a culture where, again, being indirect and being quite not as precise and not getting to the point straight away may be the name of the game. So again, sort of breaking through that whilst also getting to a good place is quite important. So that's what essentially what assertiveness is and isn't. And finally, what assertiveness really helps with, this again sort of relates very well. Now, assertiveness is not about people pleasing or telling others what they need to hear. Now, again, let's go back to some cultures that are a bit more passive, that are a bit more, you don't say what's on your mind. You don't want to embarrass or offend or anybody. So in that case, people will just tell others what they want to hear. So it is quite common for people, say somebody who has, they are having a high blood sugar level. They might just say, oh, just cut down your, how much sweets you have, and by doing that, you will, your blood sugars will be restored to normal. Whereas in reality, or they'll just say, oh, just keep taking insulin, or just keep exercising, or whatever, without giving a direct answer that, this is where it's at, and this is what you're supposed to do. So, but at that point, some people might also be praising the patient that, and that's not a bad place to start, but praising the patient, saying, oh, that this is how it was at how much at this point, and now it's kind of reduced, and and that shows that you're telling just the patient what they what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. If you are truly communicating with assertiveness, the purpose will really become it is becoming enforcing boundaries and saying no. So now let's just take a different example. Like I've visited a lot of healthcare sites within Australia where I live, And a lot of places, whether it's GP clinics or radiology facilities, there is a sign in the front of, in the reception room where it is, where the receptionists sit. It always says that violence and aggression towards staff will not be tolerated or accepted. Now, you know, in half decent places you do have that, but in a lot of places you don't see that. So if there is a situation where a patient is becoming quite threatening and quite aggressive, an assertive person will set a boundary saying that this is not acceptable. If you continue with this, I will have to ask you to leave the premises. So again, there's enforcing a very, a boundary in a very calm, collected, and effective manner. Whereas on the other hand, when you are doing really people pleasing, now this may be a very extreme example, but let's just take that example when you're not telling them the truth about where a person's sugar levels are. So yeah, these are just some examples of what assertiveness is and isn't. We will explore this topic in much more detail in upcoming videos. In the meantime, if you're enjoying this content, make sure that you leave it a like and subscribe and get notified for upcoming videos. And thank you very much for your time, attention, and presence, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much.